Right, it's time to bring you the paper review across Nigeria now. And reviewing the papers with us is the managing editor, Gloom TV, Ayodele Adio. Ayodele, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Morning. All right, let's start with the punch. 2019 polls to cost 242 billion naira. Buhari tells National Assembly. President at ICC promises free, fair elections. Okay, so this is how much the 2019 election will cost. Is it too much?
That's almost more than double what the last one cost. I think it cost about 109 billion the last time we ran elections. So what has changed in the space of 4 years? Have we had more policemen, more DSS people, or more security challenges? Whatever it is. But if you look at the breakdown of that funds, it's what worries me a lot more, because the INEC gets a substantial amount of the money, but you see the police are getting a certain amount of billions, the DSS are getting some billions, the Office of the National Security Advisor gets a couple of billions. I'm asking, you're running an election, why are you allocating billions to the Office of the National Security Advisor? Why are you allocating billions to some of these places? It brings more questions than answer at the end of the day. And that's why we keep saying that we need to rethink how our security architecture in this country, we just keep throwing monies out and get very little in return.
You would even think that e-voting, could actually help us cut some of this cost.
Oh yes, as long as, it's about, first of all, I like to commend the fact that it does look like it's just the INEC is one of the very few government institutions that moves with innovation faster than most other. You can see a steady improvement in the conduct of the elections going forward. And I think it's time that they start thinking in that direction, so that not everybody needs to vote electronically. The people that can should. So it reduces the pressure you have of people going to the polling units.
When we had the INEC chairman the other time, he was talking about the fact that they are ready with all of these. The templates, the drafts are all ready, but election is a legal activity.
Yes.
And you need the legal framework to be able to achieve all of those. Because when you don't act according to the prescription of the law, when it comes to what did the law prescribe? Did the law recognize electronic voting? No, as it were right now, it doesn't recognize electronic voting. So there's nothing they can do about it.
Exactly.
But he assured that certainly there are lots of pressure on the National Assembly to come up with all of those laws.
All right, moving on very quickly. Varsity student found dead in well after SARS invaded hostel.
That's a problem, isn't it? You wonder why it's not getting the kind of attention you expect it to get. Why you have a group of police officers who continuously violate the fundamental human rights of citizens. It goes beyond question. You live in a place like Surulere, where I live. At every spot, you see these gentlemen in buses hounding young people because you look like what they call a criminal, because you dress in some certain way. They're just harassing people everywhere, and it doesn't
unfortunate.
And sometimes they use unbranded vehicles.
Exactly,
buses.
They use buses.
In fact, we saw a viral video. It's down for bus.
And sometimes you wonder whether these things haven't gotten the attention of the Inspector General of Police. That is getting out of hand, and for goodness sake, we need people to act. People are dying needlessly, and it doesn't look like there's any action being taken.
Moving on. You're wrong. Power distributors reply Fashola on the issue of metering. All right, my wife and I swam through the flood. Unfortunately, my children could not. Katsina victim, of course, recalling his experience with the unfortunate flood that's led to the death of more than 50 people.
Oh, yeah, very sad.
FG, Ethiopian Airlines, in talks over a national carrier. Okay, 3,439 delegates pick PDP candidate on Saturday. Ekiti Assembly rejects poll results, adjourns till October. All right, that's it from the Punch.
All right, the Nation newspaper now. Banks ex-CEOs indicted as 720 billion naira cash disappears. NHIS audit uncovers how funds were stolen through curious investments. Now, the NHIS is here again with other issues on the front burner.
I mean, if I was delegated to issue such a statement where billions
just disappear.
Just disappeared.
To thin air. All of 720 billion.
I would have to take a bow. I wouldn't want to be in the mix to deliver such a statement where 750 billion gets missing. I mean, if there's one thing that seems to be lost in our political environment is shame. You know, there's a lack of shame in the Nigerian public sector space, and I think we need to find it. If we have to buy it, let's buy it. We need to have some shame.
All right.
Where is the market where you can actually buy? Do you know any?
No, but the market is available. It's available. It is for you to recognize that actually this is the market. The Nigerian space is the market.
We need to buy some shame. Seriously.
All right, then we have Katsina flood death toll hits 52, really sad one. And the Oshibajo seeks correct pricing of cement. Now, the cement as a product or the company is still the industry is still a monopoly.
Highly monopolized.
A huge monopoly. And over the years, this is not the first time you hear things like that. And when there's pressure like this, price drops, you know, 50 naira, 100 naira. Couple of months later, you know, price goes up. You know, so it's sad.
All right, we have Buhari seeks environment of 228 billion naira, 2019 polls. And Eagle Star, Etebo turns down Watford move, and court serves Dasuki's release order on DSS. And government house invaded, Fayose tells we. And Tinubu direct primary will deepen democracy. That's referring to Osun State, Osun election. And President will unveil single window at seaports, airports, border stations.
I think Colonel Dasuki must count himself lucky that his bail application was met right at the time the president is at The Hague, where he's being courted by people who are advocates of justice and human rights. Yes. So hopefully the coincidence will be meaningful to him, and then the government can listen and bend to allow the rule of law prevail. Let's
see if that will happen. To the Daily Sun now, impeachment. Imo Deputy Governor's supporters shut down Owerri. Fresh APC congresses hold this weekend. You know, this thing between the Imo State Governor, Rochas Okorocha, and his deputy, it's taking a totally
I think it's very sad. And this is what you have, you know, when the rule of law has been subjugated, when there is no respect for democratic principles, when the law, you know, has been relegated to the background. You know, otherwise, these are very simple cases that people can approach the courts and then it's settled.
And get clarity.
Why you want to impeach a deputy governor is simply beyond me. I mean, where has he gone wrong? What are the indictments you have against me? You have not even gone through the required constitutional...
They say he disobeys order from the governor, he absconds from office, and all of that. There's several of those kind of allegations against him.
All right, 2019 polls. FG seeks approval for 242 billion naira. Funds for election materials, security, logistics, and others. Hell on Apapa Oshodi Expressway. That's no longer news.
Well, it's no longer news.
Fuel tankers, trailers take over main carriageway, and service lanes stretching kilometers.
I mean, it's completely embarrassing. You know, I hope that we understand that those trucks, and I say it everywhere I go, that the dead weight on those bridges, the dead weight on those bridges is a disaster in waiting. I just don't know why. I just don't know why.
We just pray that
really
that
no
disaster really doesn't
happen.
Let it just be a cliche. Let it just
sometimes you're on that bridge, you can actually feel the vibration.
Yeah.
Many of the bridges in Lagos are really old.
It's becoming embarrassing.
Very old. And when you have this kind of weight on the bridges,
you see, this is what happens when there is...
Designed for. Exactly.
You keep asking the question, why do we have to use just the Lagos port facility, for goodness sake? You have port facilities in 3-4 other locations in the country. And simply diversify this thing and decongest Lagos, and let's have some peace, for goodness sake.
All right,
you want to bring in investors, they are coming into your country, and through your major route, there are tankers locking down everywhere. Up until I mean, it's just really embarrassing.
Yeah. Okay, Ekiti election falls below global standard, and that's observers saying there. PDP denies involvement in vote buying. According to the PDP, we did not induce any voter with money like the APC did. Meanwhile, should we take these observers serious?
Well, I mean, I think they should be taken very seriously. And you see, the most annoying part, you know, of the Ekiti elections is the fact that you have pundits, you have intellectuals who want to rationalize, you know, what happened in Ekiti and to tell Nigerians that you cannot change a situation where votes have to be bought. you know, where poor people have to sell their votes because they're hungry. And I will not buy that kind of narrative, because in this same country, lots and lots of people have won elections without having to induce voters. How did the Aminu Kano Talakawa movement gain traction in Nigeria? The likes of Tanko Yakase, Baleribe Musa, these were people who garnered the votes of poor people and they got elected. In fact, more recently, Ibrahim Shekaro beat an incumbent, Rabi Musa Kwankwaso in Kano, strictly on the votes of poor people. He didn't have to dole out money. He sold a compelling message and they voted him in. So we must not buy this narrative that you need, you know, billions to induce voters before. If anything, the reason why I believe people took monies in Ekiti State was because there was no candidate that really inspired their hearts and minds. And so at the end of the day, let's just take what we can get, and whoever wants to run can run. It's as simple as ABC.
All right, let's move to the Vanguard newspaper now. Pro-restructuring rally. Why we stopped South Middle Belt leaders trip to Benue. That's the Nigeria Air Force is giving reasons there. Says plane was faulty, replacement didn't request use of airfield, and Makurdi Airport is military, coordinating base for Operation Whale Stroke, and urges politicians not to drag the Nigeria Air Force into partisan politics. And Junaid Mohammed Ikoku, Tanko Yakasai, Afani Fere react to this.
Oh yes, when we saw the story broke out, you know, where the honors and a few other socio-cultural groups said they were denied, you know, entry to, you know, show solidarity, you know, with the rally in the Middle Belt. And I found the story a little bit disturbing, even though the Air Force have come out to deny such allegations. They say clearly that they didn't get, that they had approved a landing initially, but they changed planes at the last minute, and they requested for another you know, letter in writing, and that did not get to them, and so they had to deny them coming into. So, I mean, it's just shrouded in a lot of Nigerian typical bait and switch kind of situations. So we'll leave them to that.
We'll look. I know the story will still go on for the next few days, so we'll certainly look at that. The third mainland bridge to be shut for 3 days, not 27 months. The minister, Babatunde Fashola is giving explanations there when
what a huge relief, because I was asking myself how the entire Lagos will have to go through a coal bridge for 27 months.
I was already imagining the crisis.
But that would have been enough to build the fourth and fifth mainland bridges. Our discos are technically insolvent. BPE, Nigeria earns 37 trillion naira from oil in 6 years. Ekiti marred by irregularities, coalition of NGOs. That's from the Vanguard newspaper.
And Dasuki fulfills bail terms and court serves DSS. That's from the Daily Trust. 7 dead in Ogun flood, 6,000 rendered homeless. This flooding issue, you know, begs the question as to whether the federal government really has any kind of plan, emergency plan when it comes to such things.
I think they do have some sort of plan. They've improved, you know, their response time to some of these disasters. But you know, these are natural disasters. I mean, the best you can do is to find ways to limit, you know, the casualties. You know, at the end of the day, you know, build roads with better drainage, ensure that environmental factors are taken into consideration.
Is it about better drainage or to ensure that the drainage is there in the first place? In many cases, there's no drainage systems. Okay, residents protest as flood sweeps child away in Benin.
It's really sad. It's really sad. So we need to live up to setting environmental standards. The environment is very, very important. And you know, we hardly respect environmental factors in the things that we do. And I think it needs to get more attention.
I think the flooding, when it comes to Benin, the flooding in Benin is been there for many years.
For a long time.
The area they called Ubo, Tomline, it has been, anytime it rains, everyone is so concerned about what could happen there, you know, and you know, a baby being swept away also is not the first time. It's
It's really not.
That's the future being swept away right there because of flooding, because of failure on the part of government. All right, let's leave it there. Thank you very much, Ayodele Adio, publisher Gloom TV, for joining us this morning.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.